The market was loud with shouts, traders calling out prices, and guards watching everyone with cold eyes. But in one small corner sat a widow with her little girl, their clothes torn, their stomachs empty, their faces pale from hunger. The widow's name was Sarah. Her daughter was barely 5 years old, and both were aliens, once part of a proud people, but now no one looked at them with respect. To most passers-by, they were just beggars sitting on the dusty stone. Her little girl tugged at her arm, whispering with a weak voice, "Mama, I'm hungry, please." And those words stabbed Sarah's heart deeper than any blade. She had given up everything already. Her jewelry, her shoes, her blankets, and now only one thing remained. Her last good dress? It was the dress her husband had given her long ago, before war had taken him away, before the Empire had burned their home. It was the last memory she had of a life that felt like a dream now. But Sarah looked at her daughter's thin face and knew the choice was clear. Slowly, with shaking hands, she stood up and walked to a stall where an alien trader was arranging bolts of cloth. Her voice trembled as she spoke. "Will you buy this?" She held out her dress, the fabric faded but still fine compared to the rags she wore underneath. The trader sneered, "This? Worthless, old, dirty, no one wants this." But his eyes still glinted with greed. He offered her a few coins, less than the price of a loaf of bread. Still Sarah took it, because her daughter needed food more than she needed dignity. She returned to her little girl, handed her a small piece of bread bought with the coins, and watched as the child's eyes lit up while chewing slowly, as if every bite was treasure. Sarah smiled faintly, but inside her chest she felt empty. The guards at the edge of the market laughed when they saw her. "Look, the widow sells even her skin. Soon she will have nothing left but bones," one guard muttered, and the other replied, "And when she has nothing, we'll throw her out of the colony, no beggars allowed." Their words cut deep, but Sarah lowered her head. She had no strength to fight them. The people around her turned their faces away. None cared, none wanted to help. To them she was invisible, just another fallen soul in a galaxy that only respected power. But then, as her daughter clutched the bread and smiled with crumbs on her face, Sarah noticed something strange. A pair of eyes watching from across the market. Not alien eyes. Not cruel eyes, but human eyes. The man stood tall, his clothes simple but clean, his face calm yet serious. He did not laugh like the guards. He did not sneer like the traders. He only watched as if trying to understand. Sarah felt her chest tighten. Why was a human staring at her? Humans rarely stopped in alien colonies. Most minded their own business. Most kept away from widows like her, but this one did not turn away. The little girl noticed him too, tugging at her mother's arm again. "Mama, who is that man?" she asked with her mouth still full. Sarah hushed her quickly. "Don't look, child, don't hope." Because hope was dangerous. Hope always ended in pain. Yet the man did not walk away. His eyes followed them, steady, unshaken, like he saw something no one else did. Sarah wrapped her arms around her daughter, whispering softly, "We will survive somehow." But her heart was heavy. She had sold her last dress, the final piece of her past, and now she truly had nothing left. The market lights flickered as evening approached, shadows stretching across the stalls, and Sarah pulled her daughter closer, ready to leave. But in her mind one thought echoed, louder than the guards' laughter, louder than the traders' shouts. Why was the human still standing there? Something was about to change. She could feel it in her bones, and though she did not know if it was salvation or another tragedy, the weight of his gaze followed her like destiny waiting to unfold. The market was beginning to close. Traders, covering their stalls, lights dimming, guards yawning with boredom. But the human still stood near the corner, his gaze fixed on the widow and her child. His name was Daniel, a traveler from Earth who had come to this colony only for supplies. He had seen poverty on many worlds before, but something about this widow stopped him. It was not just her torn clothes or her hollow cheeks. It was the way she clutched her daughter with fierce love, even when she herself had nothing. Daniel shifted his pack on his shoulder, debating whether to step forward or keep walking. Humans in this sector were already unwelcome, seen as outsiders, troublemakers or worse. If he approached her, the guards might interfere, yet his heart told him to stay. Sira, the widow, noticed him again. Her eyes narrowing with caution, she pulled her little girl closer, whispering, "Don't look, don't speak. He is human. Not for us." Her voice carried fear, not hatred, because she had lived long enough to know humans were unpredictable, some kind, some cruel. The little girl, however, did not listen. Her innocent eyes sparkled as she waved her small hand at him. Crumbs still clinging to her lips, Daniel's lips curved in the smallest of smiles, and for a moment it was as if time slowed. The guards noticed, frowning. "Hey, human," one barked. "Keep walking. This trash isn't your problem." Their voices sharp, but Daniel did not move. His steady gaze only grew firmer, and that made the guards shift uncomfortably. Sarah's chest tightened, panic rising. She whispered harshly at her daughter, "Don't wave. Don't call him." But the girl whispered back, "Mama." He smiled. And that simple word broke Sarah's heart. When was the last time anyone had smiled at them? Daniel finally stepped forward, slow but confident, his boots clicking against the stone. The guards blocked his way, their spears lowered. "You deaf? She's worthless, not worth your glance." One spat. Daniel's eyes flickered to them, calm but cold. "Then why do you guard her so closely?" he asked, his tone sharp like steel. The guards bristled, unused to being challenged. One hissed, "Back off, human, or we'll make you regret." But Daniel ignored them, instead kneeling near Sarah and her child. Up close, he saw her trembling, hands, the dirt on her face, the weariness in her eyes, yet also the strength hiding behind her fear. He spoke softly. "Is she your daughter?" Sarah hesitated, distrust burning in her chest, but the child answered with a bright nod. "Yes, I'm Lyra," she said proudly. Daniel chuckled. A strong name, his voice warm, and Lyra giggled, hiding behind her mother's arm. Sarah wanted to pull her daughter away, but she froze when Daniel pulled something from his pack, not a weapon but a small piece of bread, fresh and warm. He held it out carefully. "For her?" The guards laughed loudly. "Feeding beggars now. You humans always play savior, but you'll tire soon. They're a waste." One mocked. But Sarah's eyes widened, her pride screamed to refuse. Yet her daughter's hungry stare fixed on the bread. Daniel placed it gently on the ground, not pushing it into their hands, just leaving it there, showing respect. "Take it if you wish," he said simply, then looked at the guards with sharp eyes. "If you have a problem, take it up with me." The guards hesitated, sensing the steel in his voice. They could not explain why, but this human did not seem ordinary. His calm presence carried weight. Sarah's heart pounded. Her daughter reached out, grabbed the bread, and ate quickly. Smiling with pure joy, Sarah whispered, "Why? Why are you doing this?" Her voice cracked. Daniel looked at her, his eyes steady. "Because no one else is." The words cut deep, leaving Sarah speechless. No one had spoken for her in years. No one had cared if she lived or died. Yet this stranger, a human of all people, saw her. The guards finally stepped back, muttering under their breath, not willing to provoke a fight tonight. But their glares promised trouble later. Daniel knew it. Sarah knew it too. The market grew darker as lanterns were snuffed out, people leaving in groups, laughter fading. Sarah stood slowly, holding Lyra's hand, her voice soft but trembling. "We should go." She turned to leave, but Lyra tugged at her again. "Mama, can he come with us?" Sarah froze, shame burning her face. "No, child, he has his own life." But Daniel rose and said calmly, "At least let me walk you. The streets aren't safe this late." Her instincts told her to refuse. But when she looked at the shadows, stretching through the alleys, at the hungry eyes of thieves waiting, she nodded once, silent but grateful. As they walked together, the guards' whispers followed them like poison. "This won't end well," one muttered, and the other laughed. "Let the human play hero. He'll regret it soon." Sarah kept her head low. Her daughter skipped happily with bread in her hands. And Daniel walked beside them, his glance steady, his presence like a shield. For the first time in years, Sarah did not feel completely alone. Yet, in her heart, fear still battled with hope, for she knew nothing came free in this cruel galaxy, and she wondered what price this kindness would demand tomorrow. The narrow streets of the colony were quiet now, only a few dim lanterns burning, wind carrying the smell of smoke and dust. Sarah held her daughter's hand tightly as they walked, Daniel a step behind them. Her heart raced with doubt. Why was this human helping? What did he want? She had learned long ago that kindness often hid a trap. But her daughter, Lyra, was different. She looked up at Daniel with wide eyes, smiling like she had found a new star. They stopped near a broken wall, where Sarah usually slept, a corner hidden from the guards, cold stone beneath, no roof above. Daniel looked at it and frowned. "You stay here?" he asked. Sarah lowered her head, ashamed to answer. Daniel opened his pack again, pulling out not one, but 2 loaves of bread, larger than the piece he had given before. The smell of baked wheat filled the air. Lyra gasped, her small hands trembling. As she stared, Sarah's chest tightened. Her pride and hunger fought inside her. She whispered, "I cannot pay you, human." Her voice almost a plea. Daniel shook his head, his tone calm. "It's not about payment. It's about her." He glanced at the little girl who now clutched her mother's arm desperately. Sarah wanted to push the bread away to keep her last shred of dignity, but Lyra's whisper cut her deeply. "Mama, please, please." The hunger in her daughter's voice broke her resistance. With shaking fingers, she took the loaf, breaking it in half, giving the bigger piece to Lyra. The child bit into it and laughed, crumbs falling on her lap, her joy so pure that even Daniel smiled. Sarah, however, only stared at the small piece left in her hand, her lips trembling as she ate slowly. The taste of real food after so long made her eyes water, but she quickly hid it, afraid to show weakness. Yet Daniel noticed, his voice gentle. "When was the last time you both ate properly?" Sarah froze. She wanted to lie, to say yesterday, but the truth slipped out. 3 days. Daniel's jaw tightened, anger flashing in his eyes, not at her, but at the cruel world that left a widow and child starving. Lyra leaned against her, mother's side, full for the first time in weeks. Her small voice bright. "Mama, he's nice, can he stay?" Sarah stiffened, glaring softly at her daughter. "Hush, child." But Daniel only chuckled softly. "I'll stay a while. Make sure you're safe tonight." Those words sent shivers down Sarah's spine. Safe. The word felt foreign, like a memory from a time long gone, but not everyone nearby felt the same. In the shadows of the street, 2 thieves had been watching, their eyes fixed on the bread, whispering to each other, "That human has food, and those beggars too, easy pickings." One grinned. Daniel's sharp eyes noticed the movement, his body shifting slightly, hand brushing against his pack. He had no visible weapon, yet his stance told Sarah he was ready. The thieves stepped closer, but one look from Daniel's gaze froze them, a cold, steady glare that promised pain if they tried. They muttered curses and slunk back into the dark. Sarah saw it all, her suspicion mixing with awe. This human was different. He had no reason to guard her, yet he did. She whispered softly, unable to hold back. "Why us? You could give food to anyone. Why me and my girl?" Daniel looked at her, his voice low. "Because everyone else turned away, and because no child should starve while I can still share what I have." The words struck her harder than the guard's insults ever had. No one had spoken like that. Since her husband's death, her throat tightened, but she stayed silent, afraid that if she spoke, the tears she held back would spill. Lyra crawled into her mother's lap, clutching the last piece of bread, her small voice sleepy. "Mama, he's like Papa." Sarah's breath caught. She hugged her daughter tightly, whispering, "Rest, little one." But her eyes flickered toward Daniel. He had turned slightly away, giving them privacy, his face hidden in the dim light. But Sarah thought she saw something in his expression. A man carrying his own grief, his own scars. The night grew colder. But with bread in their stomachs, and a human sitting nearby like a silent guardian. Sarah felt warmth she had not felt in years. Still, fear gnawed inside her. She knew the guards would not forget. They had seen the human interfere, and tomorrow they might return. Harder, crueler. For now, though, the only sound was her daughter's soft breathing and the steady presence of the human who had given them more than bread. He had given them a moment of hope, and hope she knew was dangerous. But as she looked at Lyra's peaceful face, Sarah could not push it away, because deep inside, a thought whispered, maybe this human was more than a glance. Maybe he was the turning point of their fate. The colony awoke with noise as the first light touched the broken roofs, traders shouting again, guards stomping through the streets, and hungry children running after scraps. Sarah opened her eyes, feeling the cold stone under her. Her daughter curled up against her chest, still sleeping with a soft smile, crumbs of bread on her cheeks. Sarah's heart ached. It had been so long since she had seen her child sleep without crying. She looked up and froze. Daniel was still there, sitting nearby, his back against the wall, arms folded, eyes half closed but alert. He had not left during the night. Her voice came out in a whisper. "You stayed." Daniel's eyes opened, calm but sharp. "I said I would," he replied simply. As if it was the most natural thing in the world, Sarah did not know whether to feel comfort or fear. No one stayed for them before. People always threw coins and walked away. But this human stayed like a wall between them and danger. Lyra stirred, rubbing her eyes, then grinned when she saw him. "Good morning," she said brightly, her small voice breaking the silence. Daniel smiled faintly. "Good morning, little star." Sarah's eyes widened at the words, "little star." That was what her late husband used to call their daughter. She bit her lip, forcing back tears. Before she could reply, heavy footsteps approached. 2 guards, the same ones from the market, their sneers sharp as blades. "Still here, human? Playing protector for trash?" one mocked. Daniel stood slowly, towering over them, though outnumbered. "I'm just sharing bread," his voice calm. But the guards spat at the ground. "Share too much and you'll regret it. Humans don't belong here." Sarah trembled, pulling Lyra close. But Daniel did not step back. He only tilted his head, his words quiet but heavy. "Then maybe you should ask why the colony lets widows starve in the dirt." The guards stiffened, unused to defiance. One growled, "Careful, human, next time. We won't just talk." Then they walked away, throwing threats over their shoulders. Sarah's hands shook, whispering, "You shouldn't have spoken. They will come back." Daniel looked at her, steady. "Let them. I won't let them touch you." His voice carried a weight she could not understand. For the rest of the morning, Sarah could not shake the feeling that danger was coming, but when she looked at her daughter laughing while nibbling the last bit of bread, her fear softened. Daniel broke the silence again. "You can't live on the streets forever. It's too dangerous." Sarah lowered her head, ashamed. "Where else? Can we go?" He hesitated, then spoke firmly. "My place, it's small but safe, at least for now." The words hit Sarah like a storm. Her first instinct was to refuse. "No, I cannot. I don't even know you." Her voice sharp. But Daniel did not flinch. "You don't have to trust me yet, but she needs shelter." He nodded toward Lyra, who was humming softly to herself. Sarah's chest tightened. Every instinct screamed caution. Yet when she saw her daughter's thin arms, her worn-out shoes, she knew the truth. One more night in the cold could break her, she whispered almost to herself. Safe. Just for her. Daniel nodded once. No smile, no pressure, just certainty. They walked through the colony, guards glaring but not interfering, traders whispering, "Look, the human walks with the widow now." Their words filled with venom, but Daniel ignored them all, his stride steady. Finally, they reached a modest building near the edge of the colony, a place few cared about. Daniel unlocked the door, revealing a small room with a simple bed, a table, and a fire pit for warmth. Lyra gasped in delight, her eyes wide. "Mama, it's warm!" She ran inside, her laughter echoing like music. Sarah followed slowly, her eyes scanning the room, humble but clean. It felt unreal. Daniel set his pack down, pulling out a small blanket and placing it near the bed. "You both can rest here. I'll sleep by the door," he said plainly. Sierra blinked in disbelief. Why do this for strangers?" Her voice cracked. Daniel's face darkened for a moment. "Because once someone did the same for me." He did not explain further, his eyes distant, carrying memories of his own pain. Sarah fell silent. She did not ask again, but deep inside a question burned. What had this human lost? That night, as firelight flickered on the walls, Lyra curled up under the blanket, whispering with joy, "Mama, we have a home." Sarah kissed her forehead, whispering back, "Just for now." Though her heart trembled, she turned her eyes to Daniel, who sat silently by the door, his face calm but unreadable. For the first time in years, Sarah felt something strange, not safety, not comfort, but the smallest seed of hope. But with it came fear, because in her world, hope always demanded a price, and she did not know yet what price this kindness would demand. The next morning, the colony streets buzzed with rumors, whispers spreading like fire. "The widow and her brat are living with a human now," traders muttered, guards smirked, and even children pointed as Sarah walked beside Daniel. Sarah felt every eye burning into her back, shame mixed with fear. Her daughter Lyra clung to her hand, innocent and smiling. Unaware of the storm building around them, Daniel noticed too, his jaw tightening. But he walked calmly, not showing a trace of doubt. His presence alone made some step aside, though others sneered openly. At the marketplace, the two guards from before blocked their path, tall armored figures with cruel grins. Well, the human pet has found himself a widow," one mocked. "Tell me, human, how much did you pay for her?" The crowd chuckled, their laughter sharp as knives. Sarah's cheeks burned, she wanted to vanish, but Daniel's eyes stayed cold and steady. "She is not property," he said, his voice like steel. The guards stepped closer, their spears clinking against the ground. "Not property? Then what is she? Your entertainment? Your pity project?" "We don't allow strays to stay here, human." Lyra peeked out from behind her mother, fear in her wide eyes. Sarah wrapped her arms around her tightly, whispering, "Don't look." But her voice trembled. Daniel stepped forward, shielding them with his body, his tone low but dangerous. "Say what you want about me, but leave them out of it." The guard sneered, one leaning close enough to hiss, "Careful, human, this is not your world. Your kind may think themselves heroes, but here, you obey us." The crowd grew silent, sensing tension ready to snap. A single spark away from violence, Sarah's heart pounded. She wanted to pull Daniel away before blood spilled, but her voice caught in her throat. Then with a shove, one guard knocked Daniel back a step. The crowd gasped, expecting him to strike. But Daniel only straightened, his eyes burning but his fists still at his sides. "If you think strength is in bullying widows and children, then perhaps you've forgotten what true strength is." His words rang out clear. The second guard snarled, raising his spear threateningly, but the first caught his arm, whispering, "Not here, too many eyes." Instead, they spat at Daniel's feet, turning their words into poison. "Listen well, human. Next time we catch you outside your hole, you'll regret ever setting foot in this colony." They walked away, leaving the tension heavy in the air, the crowd whispering louder, some mocking, some curious, but none brave enough to intervene. Sarah's knees felt weak, her voice breaking. "Why did you provoke them? They will kill you." Her eyes glistened, anger mixed with fear. Daniel looked at her calmly. "I didn't provoke them. I stood in front of them, and I'll keep doing it." Her breath caught. She did not understand. Why would a stranger risk himself for her, for Lyra? But the way he said it left no doubt. He meant it. That night, the small shelter felt different, heavier. Sarah sat by the fire, Lyra asleep in her lap, Daniel by the door as always, but this time his eyes were sharper. Watching every flicker of movement outside, Sarah finally spoke, her voice low. "You don't know what you've done. Humans are already hated here. Now they will come for you harder, and for us too." Daniel's gaze softened slightly. "Then let them come, I've faced worse." Her chest tightened, she whispered, Why? Why throw yourself into our misery? You could walk away and be safe. For a moment Daniel was silent, staring into the flames, then his voice came quiet but heavy. Because once, I lost everything too, and no one stood for me. I swore if I ever saw it happen again, I wouldn't turn away. Sarah's lips parted, words dying on her tongue. She had expected excuses, pity, maybe even hidden motives, but not this. His pain was real as hers. The fire crackled, shadows dancing across their faces. Sarah closed her eyes, whispering only to herself, "Perhaps he is more foolish than kind." Yet in her heart a dangerous seed grew. Trust. Outside, footsteps echoed faintly, guards patrolling, their voices sharp in the distance. The human thinks he can defy us. Soon he'll learn. Inside, Sarah held Lyra tighter, Daniel's steady presence at the door the only shield between them and the storm. The widow had nothing left. She had sold everything for survival. But now, for the first time in years, someone was willing to fight for her, and that terrified her more than hunger ever had. The days passed slowly after the guard's warning. The market still buzzed with cruel whispers. But Daniel's presence kept Sarah and her daughter from being harassed openly. Still, she could feel eyes watching them everywhere they went. Inside. The small shelter, however, a new rhythm of life had begun. Sarah cooked scraps Daniel brought. Lyra laughed more often, and for the first time in years their nights were not spent shivering in the cold. But Sarah's heart was still restless. She feared what tomorrow might bring. She feared the guard's return, and more than anything, she feared trusting too much in a human who could vanish at any moment. One evening, Daniel returned from the outer stalls carrying food, his shoulders heavy with exhaustion, yet his voice calm. "I managed to trade for this," he said. Placing a small bag of grain on the table, Sarah's eyes widened. It had been years since she had seen so much food at once. Lyra's eyes sparkled. She clapped her hands. "We can eat real porridge, Mama," she giggled. Daniel chuckled softly. "Yes, real porridge." After supper, when Sarah cleaned the bowls, Lyra crawled to a corner with scraps of paper and a small piece of coal she had found. She bent her head, drawing quietly, her little tongue poking out in concentration. Daniel noticed and asked, "What are you making, little star?" Lyra grinned shyly, hiding the paper behind her back. "It's a surprise." Sarah watched curiously but said nothing. Her daughter had not played or drawn since her father died. The sound of her giggles filled the room like sunlight. When the drawing was done, Lyra stood proudly, her small hands shaking as she carried the paper to Daniel. "Here, this is for you." Daniel took it carefully, unfolding the crumpled sheet. His eyes fell on simple lines and shapes. A stick figure of a tall man with dark hair, standing beside a woman and a child, 3 figures holding hands under a roof, above them a star shining brightly. He blinked, his throat tightening. This is us?" he asked softly. Lyra nodded eagerly. "Yes, you, Mama, and me. We're a family now." Sarah froze, her breath caught in her chest, her eyes snapping to her daughter. "Lyra?" she whispered sharply, but the child only smiled innocently. Daniel looked at the drawing again, his face unreadable, but his hand trembled as he held it. Memories flashed in his mind. His own family, gone years ago, burned away by war. The empty nights when he had sworn never to care again. Now this small girl had drawn him back into a family with one simple gift. His voice broke as he whispered, "Thank you, little star." Lyra beamed and hugged him tightly around the waist. Daniel stiffened at first, then slowly rested his hand on her head, his eyes moist, though he tried to hide it. Sarah felt her heart twist, fear and hope colliding inside her. She wanted to scold her daughter for being too forward, for tying herself to a stranger. But when she saw Daniel's face, the pain and warmth fighting together, she could not speak. That night, as Lyra slept peacefully, clutching the drawing close, Sarah whispered to Daniel, "You should not let her hope. She is only a child." Her voice hard but shaking, Daniel looked at her, his gaze steady. "And what about you? Do you hope even a little?" The question cut deep. Sarah turned away, staring at the fire. Hope is dangerous. It always ends in pain, she muttered. Daniel sighed, placing the drawing carefully in his pack. Maybe, but sometimes pain is worth it if it means she can laugh again. His words were soft but heavy. Outside, faint footsteps echoed. Shadows moving in the street. Sarah stiffened. Daniel's eyes sharpened. He rose silently, peering through the cracks in the door. 2 guards stood outside, speaking in low voices. The human grows bold. The widow clings to him. This cannot continue, one hissed. The other replied. Tomorrow we remind him where he stands. Their laughter faded into the night. Daniel sat back down, his jaw tight, Sarah's eyes wide with fear. They will come for us, she whispered. Daniel nodded grimly. Let them. His voice calm, but his hand rested near his blade, in the quiet. Sarah's eyes drifted to her sleeping daughter, her arms wrapped around the little drawing, the child dreaming of a family while danger circled outside. For Sarah, that drawing was not just a gift, it was a spark of hope her daughter refused to let die. And now it tied them to this human more than any word could. And as much as she feared it, part of her prayed that maybe, just maybe, this fragile picture could one day become real. The next morning dawned heavy, the air thick with tension. Sarah woke early, her heart unsettled. She knew the guards would not stay silent after last night's whispers. Her daughter still slept peacefully, the drawing clutched against her chest, as if holding on to her dream of family. Daniel stood by the door already, his back straight, his eyes sharp. He had not truly slept, only watched, waiting, his voice low as Sarah joined him. They'll come today, she whispered. Daniel nodded. Once, then today we decide what kind of life you and Lyra will have. Her chest tightened at his words, a mixture of fear and something deeper, something she dared not name. By midday, the marketplace was alive with noise again, but the air shifted when the guards returned, this time not 2, but 5, armored and armed, their cruel eyes searching the crowd until they landed on Daniel and Sarah. Human, one barked. You think you can defy us, feed strays, insult our authority? Today you learn your place. The crowd gathered quickly, whispers spreading. It's him, the widow's human. Some mocked, others watched with curiosity. Sarah clutched Lyra close, trembling, but Daniel stepped forward, his presence calm, yet unyielding. My place is here with them, he said firmly, the words carrying across the market. Silence rippled through the crowd. The guards laughed harshly. With them? They're nothing, beggars, trash. You shame your own kind by lowering yourself to them. Daniel's eyes burned, his voice cold. If protecting a child from hunger is shame, then I will carry it proudly. One guard lunged, shoving him back, but Daniel did not fall, his stance. Like stone, another swung his spear. Daniel caught the shaft, twisting sharply. The guard stumbled, gasps echoed through the crowd. Sarah's heart raced, fear choking her. She wanted to scream, to run, but her legs would not move. Lyra cried, Out, Mama! He'll get hurt. Daniel fought not with wild rage, but with precision. Every move steady, every strike controlled. He disarmed one guard, sent another sprawling, but still more surrounded him. The crowd murmured louder, some mocking, some cheering. Quietly, for the first time, they saw a human stand against the guards without fear. One guard raised his weapon toward Sarah and Lyra, snarling, Then the human will watch them bleed. But before he could strike, Daniel moved like lightning, his fist slamming into the guard's chest, sending him crashing to the ground. Daniel stood over him, his voice thunderous. You will not touch them. Silence followed, broken only by the ragged breathing of the defeated guards. The remaining guards hesitated, shame burning their faces. They gathered their fallen and retreated, spitting curses. This isn't over, human, you'll regret this. Their voices fading as they stumbled away. The marketplace erupted into whispers again, but this time different. Some aliens stared, with new eyes, some even nodded faintly with respect. No one had ever stood for the widow before. No one had faced the guards for her. Sarah's legs finally gave out. She sank to the ground, holding Lyra tightly, tears streaming down her face, not from fear but from the overwhelming truth. Someone had chosen to fight for them. Daniel knelt beside them, his voice softer now. It's over, for now. His hand gently brushing Lyra's head. The child looked up at him with wide eyes, then threw her small arms around his neck, whispering, "Papa." Daniel froze, the word cutting deeper than any blade. Sarah gasped, "Lyra?" But her daughter only smiled. "You protect us, you feed us, you stay. You're Papa now." Daniel's throat tightened, his eyes burning. He had sworn never to carry that word again, never to open the wound of his lost family. Yet here it was, spoken with pure innocence, not as a burden, but as a gift. He looked at Sarah, her eyes wide with shock, her lips trembling. She whispered, "She doesn't understand." But Daniel shook his head gently. "No, she understands more than we think." For a long moment, silence hung between them, only the sound of the crowd dispersing, of normal life returning. But something had changed forever. That night, in the small shelter, Lyra slept peacefully between them, her tiny hand resting in both of theirs. Sarah whispered in the dim light, "You don't have to stay. You've done more than enough." Her voice shaking, torn between fear of losing him and fear of depending too much. Daniel looked at her, his eyes steady. "I don't leave families behind." Her heart trembled. She wanted to argue, to protect herself with walls of mistrust, but the walls crumbled as she whispered back, "Then, maybe we are a family now." Daniel did not reply with words, only placed the little drawing Lyra had given him on the table, the three figures holding hands under a star. He touched it gently, then looked at Sarah, his eyes saying what his lips could not. In that fragile room with nothing but a blanket, a fire, and a child's gift, a family was reborn, not by blood, not by law, but by choice. And sometimes, choice was stronger than destiny itself.